And Tom, I don't know if I need to ask you for like a specific price target on NVIDIA at this point, but that was the market leadership until this summer when it broke down. What do we need from it at this point?
Well, I mean, NVIDIA is still at the center of the entire transformation that's coming with AI, and NVIDIA continues to be one of the leading companies. So, from a long-term investor perspective, I think anyone should look at NVIDIA's congestion and consolidation as opportunities to add if they don't have exposure. And then I think for anyone else, it's just a time to be patient because, of course, stocks don't just go straight up.
We'll go. There are a couple stocks, however, moving higher. NVIDIA is up about 3%. Yes, almost 3%. The company hosting a 3-day summit in Washington starting today. It's up 25% over the past month. That move has pushed its market cap back up above $3 trillion and passed Microsoft into second place behind just Apple.
You shared a cautionary tale with us about how even the most influential revolutionary companies can eventually, their stocks can go down. Here's Microsoft from 1997 to 2006, and it just said wham. It took 17 years to break even. This is not where NVIDIA is right now, is it?
We don't think so, Charles, but we work with retail high net worth investors, and we tend to forget the past sometimes when things are good. I call it the crucible of fear and greed. When things are good, everybody wants to be in, right? When things are bad, everybody wants to be out. So we put a little piece together on Microsoft to remind people that the absolute best company you could argue in the last 30, 40 years went through some tough times. NVIDIA has been going up, so our phones have been ringing off the hook. We got to have more NVIDIA, got to have more NVIDIA. We don't think we're in a Microsoft situation, but trees don't grow to the sky, and it's normal for stocks that have run that fast to consolidate.
Using the same chart, Todd, though, could we be in something of a parabolic period, though, here? I mean, if so, it's a big difference. I mean, getting out here and getting out here, obviously on the way up, people are going to call you, to your point, like, how come I'm not in? How come I'm not in? Of course, when it collapses, the phones don't ring, right?
Yeah, 100%. So we've seen NVIDIA go sky high. In June, it got to 140 bucks a share intraday. 2 months later, it was down to in the 90s. Very heavy volatility, like an aftershock earthquake pattern. That's probably going to be the normal pattern if hyperscaling continues. So what we're telling clients is don't chase these stocks when they run a lot and it's very exciting. Hold your horses, dollar cost average in, and use volatility as your friend.
You also had in the piece, you had your blended 12-month PE ratios, right? PE multiples here. NVIDIA, obviously in a class by itself. How much stock do you put into something like that? Do you rather, for instance, use a PEG ratio or something like that? How much of your stock are you putting into making selections for the portfolio based on just PE ratios and things like that?
Sure, you can use a lot of valuation metrics, but if we're going to use the poster child for highly valued, NVIDIA is going to ping the top bar on all of them. So we look at a lot of different things. This illustrates the highly valued nature of the white-hot NASDAQ 100, the AI ecosystem stocks, and some of the better valuations in your value names.
In a week where we're poised for a lot of semiconductor news, whether it is NVIDIA speaking down in D.C. or AMD with its event, obviously this update with Supermicro. I mean, is there still a trade to be had there? Are there still gains to be had in the sector?
I think, again, you're going to have to pick stocks. So I think with NVIDIA, it's not going to surprise me to see that hit new all-time record highs before the end of the year. Because Blackwell, in a weird way, the fact that it's been delayed is good for them because nobody wants to get out of line and miss getting those chips because they're 2 to 3 times more powerful than the current generation of chips out there. So we like in what might seem counterintuitive, we like NVIDIA actually through year end because of that. Now, I've been pretty open about saying I think there's going to be an AI digestion phase coming. I think it's going to happen in the first half of 2025. I think you're going to have a big problem when that occurs because you haven't seen revenues for the companies spending all of this money on AI go up. They've all gone down. What do I mean by that? Google, Microsoft, Amazon, 3 of the 4 biggest spenders on AI infrastructure, after they reported the June quarter, all of their forward revenue estimates went down. And that's why those stocks had some issues. So unless you see all this spending translate into revenues, you're going to get a digestion phase. And by the way, that happened after COVID. NVIDIA's revenues went from being up over 80% year over year to being down over 20% year over year as these same customers digested all of the COVID spend. So NVIDIA is kind of complicated, but in the short term, I think there's a good shot you see new record highs before the year is over.
Higher. If you look at NVIDIA today, if you look at semiconductors, so from that high on June 16th, June 17th, it was a 21% pullback in the semis. We're now up almost 10% since the lows on September 6th, and that's also with higher rates. And I would just say if you look at a chart at NVIDIA or the semis, you can see that ultimately they did bounce off the bottom end of that uptrend. And I'm sure Carter's got a view on this. I just get back to the leadership that the markets have looked for on the index level is something that's come from semiconductors, and that's then led the NASDAQ, which has then led the S&P.
And meantime, shares of NVIDIA up nearly 3% today for its fourth straight day of gains. It is now up more than 40% from its August 5th lows, less than 10% from its all-time high. The chipmaker kicking off its three-day AI summit this morning. Morgan Stanley reiterating the stock as an overweight rating. Guy?
I think it was a super micro move if you throw that one up. But, we've talked about this. I think Carter talked about it last week. You're in this pennant formation in NVIDIA. It's going to break one way or the other. Today, it shows signs of breaking to the upside, but I still think this pennant is intact. The June 20th level, the formation that Tim sort of alluded to, I think the stock closed above 140 that day and reversed. That's interesting. It's not been broached yet. So the question is, which way does it break? Is it going to break to the upside out of this pennant or the downside? Today's action suggests the upside. We'll see, though. It's not there yet, Mel.
And in the case of NVIDIA versus an Apple, I think you obviously have two stocks where I would stay with Carter, and I just don't think the expectations in Apple are that great. NVIDIA, we know they're great. And so now we've dealt with some production issues. We've had the company come back and pretty much reassure. Fourth quarter demand, they're saying is going to be extremely strong. And I get back to the stock, and I get back to even some of the market dynamics that have made NVIDIA an outperformer, in addition to those ones that are obviously NVIDIA specific. I think the macro supports NVIDIA. I think it supports the names where you have growth, and I think the market is less worried about that multiple here.
All right, I hope you're all doing well today and staying calm in this market. The S&P finished the day down nearly 1%. NVIDIA had a great day today, finishing up a little over 2.2%. And Tesla got hit hard today, finishing the day down 3.7%. I'll briefly say about Tesla that I think the stock still has upward potential ahead of the robotaxi event on October 10th. But I don't know what will happen in the immediate short term. Tesla is getting close to this support trend line on the daily time frame. If Tesla were to touch that trend line tomorrow, that would be around $236.50 per share. If we get a clean break below that trend line, then I would probably sell the majority of my swing trade position and lock in some gains just in case. That being said, as long as the rest of the market remains calm, then I think Tesla is likely to trade higher ahead of the robotaxi event on October 10th. However, I expect the October 10th event to be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. And so I intend to fully exit this position, or at least exit the majority of this position prior to the actual event on October 10th. I just want to be completely honest and transparent with you all and tell you that that is what I intend to do with my swing trade position. Okay, now about NVIDIA. NVIDIA performed great today as we had multiple news events. Yesterday, NVIDIA updated their investor presentation, sharing a lot of exciting details. I'm not going to go too deep into details right now, but I do want to share a couple slides from the presentation with you really quick. So this first slide shows some of the components of Blackwell. And I want to reiterate that Blackwell is so much more than just a chip. It's an entire platform. And this provides a massive revenue opportunity for NVIDIA. Additionally, I think this next slide is very encouraging. This is the product roadmap for NVIDIA. Blackwell launches in 2024, and then we get Blackwell Ultra in 2025. And later on, Rubin is expected to arrive in 2026. So again, Blackwell is so much more than just a chip, and I think NVIDIA should be just fine for the next 1 to 2 years as long as things remain peaceful in the Pacific, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their capex spending on AI. Now looking at NVIDIA's chart, we have broken above this resistance trend line on the daily time frame. Now here's the thing. I don't know how the stock will react in the immediate short term over the next couple days. This is because NVIDIA's AI summit in Washington, D.C. will still be ongoing both tomorrow and Wednesday. I am curious to see how the stock reacts in the short term. We will have to wait and see if we get any important updates over the next couple days. That being said, I want to remind all of you of two things. I am bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. And at the same time, I am cautious about adding to NVIDIA and cautious about adding to the rest of the market until November 1st. There are 3 reasons why. Back in 2016 and 2020, the market began trading lower in mid to late October, reaching a relative low on the Friday before the election. This year, that would be November 1st. Additionally, NVIDIA tends to move in cycles in between earnings. Prior to NVIDIA's last 2 earnings reports, the stock reached a relative low 3 to 5 weeks prior to the company's upcoming earnings reports. If that pattern were to repeat itself, then we could see softening price action sometime between now and late October/early November. And the third reason I am cautious right now is earnings season. It's that time again. So this month, we get earnings from many semiconductor companies and earnings from many of NVIDIA's largest customers. We got Microsoft and Alphabet on the 22nd, Tesla on the 23rd, Amazon on the 24th, Meta Meta on the 30th. And on top of this, we have multiple semi-names reporting, including Taiwan Semiconductor, which is scheduled to report on October 21st. This will be a key earnings report both for NVIDIA and the entire industry. About 90% of the world's most advanced chips are currently manufactured in Taiwan, and TSMC manufactures NVIDIA's chips. So that earnings report on the 21st will be very important to watch. So given the pattern the market followed during the last two election cycles, given NVIDIA's typical cycle in between earnings, and given a packed month of earnings reports, I am cautious right now about adding to NVIDIA and cautious about adding to the rest of the market. Now, once we get to the actual week of the election, I think it is likely for NVIDIA and the rest of the market to start trading higher based on what happened back in 2016 and 2020. And this is, of course, assuming that nothing unexpected is happening in the world at that time. I think NVIDIA is likely to trade higher in November ahead of the company's next earnings report. I think this is especially likely considering Micron's great earnings, the fact that Blackwell revenue should start to show up in NVIDIA's next quarter guidance, and because the entire market is likely to trade higher in early November based on historical trends. So those are my short-term and medium-term thoughts on NVIDIA as of now. Looking ahead from a long-term perspective, I think NVIDIA's brightest days are ahead, and I seriously would not be surprised if this company doubles over the next 2 years, given NVIDIA's current growth trajectory and upcoming product cycles. As long as nothing unexpected happens to Taiwan, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their CapEx spending on AI, then I think NVIDIA should be just fine for at least the next 1 to 2 years. At least that's how I view the situation. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.